America, George Washington has left the building. And I gotta say, France has given us quite the death glare. It's time for your second president, and just like Washington, he'll be voted in unanimously by the Electoral College and transcend party lines, keeping the nation safe and unified for another 8 years. Wait, that's not how history happened? The 1796 presidential election was the first real competitive presidential election in the United States. This election proved that when the Constitution was designed less than 10 years earlier, it had not anticipated the rise in political parties. The presidency would go to whomever won the majority delegate votes, but the runner-up was automatically the vice president. This became a challenging policy because the lines in the political parties were growing more and more distinct. Not to go all world star on you, but in 1798, Federalist Congressman Roger Griswold violently attacked Democratic Republican Matthew Lyon with a walking stick in the chamber of the House of Representatives, busting out into an all-out brawl between the two. At this point, the U.S. was still 60 years away from the Civil War, and if you look at the election result map next to the legality of slavery map, you can see the divide begin to thicken. The winner of the 1796 presidential election and the second president of the United States was John Adams. His political rival, however, Jefferson, would now join his administration as the vice president. This would prove very detrimental to John Adams' presidency. Pretty much 200 years before there was Team Jacob versus Team Edward, every girl in America passionately debated Team Jefferson versus Team Adams. The Team Jefferson girl would have said something like, "Vive la revolution! Thomas Jefferson is so dreamy with his high-class hoes and various other top-quality farming equipment." If there was a Team Adams girl nearby, she would have spazzed out like, "Girl, you crazy! John Adams got that I don't care what no one thinks attitude, and you know how I likes my men short." John Adams at his inauguration said something like, "War is stupid." However, he was stuck in a real-life game of Frogger, constantly trying to dodge war. Everyone had an opinion about the next move he should make, but John Adams didn't care what they thought, because John Adams kind of thought people were stupid. He sent some diplomats over to France, and they were all like, "Let's be cool and not get into a war." And France is all like, "I don't know. We could sure use some bribes." The U.S. diplomats were all like, "France, please." And they left the meeting. France was super mad. They felt the U.S. lied to them and now wouldn't even give them any money. So much like Britain a short time earlier, France was all like, "Look, some really cool U.S. merchant ships. It would be a shame if someone hijacked them." Then the U.S. military basically started hitting the gym and decided to bulk up. Adams didn't want to fight France, but he also didn't want to not fight France. So he ordered the harassment, but not the total engagement of French ships. This time period is referred to as the Quasi-War. Not too long after the start, the U.S. found out that even quasi-wars are super expensive. So they decided a new tax on property would be a good idea. Because historically, Americans are usually super cool with some new taxes. This led to Fry's Rebellion, the third tax rebellion since the establishment of the United States, not including the revolution that started the country. A Team Jefferson girl would pop up here and quote Thomas Jefferson by saying, "A little rebellion now and then is a good thing, and as necessary in the political world as storms in the physical." Thankfully, Fry's Rebellion was a bloodless one. However, the Federalists got quite mobby and put 30 men to trial. A few were convicted of treason and sentenced to death. This was a little excessive for a bloodless rebellion, so John Adams pardoned them. It was around this time that Napoleon Bonaparte jumped into the scene after seizing power in France. Napoleon had no use for a quasi-war when he was right in the middle of his own real-life game of Risk. France and the US were able to quickly hash out small disagreements and cut ties. In domestic affairs, Congress passed and Adams signed a series of laws that were just terrible. These laws are known as the Alien and Sedition Acts, and it gets a little House of Cards-ish. Between the rise in tension between political parties, a potential all-out war with France, and a little rebellion now and then, the Federalists thought, you know what would make controlling the citizens and staying in power a lot easier? Arresting and deporting people that don't agree with us. These laws would have set fire to Thomas Jefferson's Tyranny Meter. These laws included the Naturalization Act, which made it harder and a much longer process to become a U.S. citizen. The Alien Friends Act gave the president power to deport or imprison any alien or non-citizen that were deemed dangerous. The Alien Enemies Act made it legal for the president to deport or imprison any male citizen 14 years or older if they were from a hostile nation. And then there was the Sedition Act, which pretty much made it illegal to talk jive about the president or federal government. Under this act, 20 Democratic Republican newspaper editors were arrested and others to follow. Most notably, Representative Matthew Lyon of Vermont, who you remember earlier was getting jumped with a cane on Congress floor, was now arrested for writing a letter that said Adams had an unbounded thirst for ridiculous pomp, foolish adulation, and self-avarice. These laws made the Federalists incredibly unpopular. So unpopular that Matthew Lyon, who was a Democratic Republican, won re-election from a jail cell and was received as a martyr of freedom of speech. Thomas Jefferson went bananas and said something like, "If these injustices stand, then the worst has just begun. Soon the president will create any law that suits him. His suspicions will be considered evidence. He will be the president, accuser, witness, lawyer, judge, and executioner. When tyranny pops up, revolution will pop up behind it. Let's join together and say, end these terrible laws. Let's embrace strangers as friends and work together to achieve true democracy." With speeches like that, it's no surprise John Adams did not win re-election in 1800. As a matter of fact, most Federalists lost their election. And seeing the end of their political power, the Federalist Party, during the intermittent time between losing the election and the transference of power to the election's winners, the losing or lame duck Congress passed the creation of a bundle of new judiciary positions. Then John Adams went all Oprah on the Federalists and was like, "You're a judge, and you're a judge, and you're a judge, and you're a judge." This was an attempt to keep the Federalist ideals in the judiciary branch, whose positions were often a lifetime tenure. And it kind of worked. One man appointed during this midnight judge period was John Marshall, and he served as a Chief Justice of the United States for another 35 years. John Adams' presidency is seen by historians as kind of a bummer, but he did avoid all-out war with France, and he was the first president to live in the White House. But other than that, yeah, his presidency was kind of a bummer. John Adams died July 4th, 1826, 50 years to the day after signing the Declaration of Independence. His last words mentioned his best friend and most bitter rival. He said, "Thomas Jefferson lives," unaware Thomas Jefferson had died just a few hours earlier. And that's how history happened. Thanks for watching. Please take time to subscribe to History Happened to get notifications for our newest videos. Follow us on Facebook for daily historical posts, and leave suggestions in the comments below. We are only human, so if you find any inaccuracies in any of our videos, please reach out to us and let us know. We hope we made you love history even more, or hate history even less. Either way, have a historic day.